Okay, hi, this is Frank Morsani. Good morning.
I'm Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview. On today's show, I'll welcome businessman and philanthropist Frank Morsani, who just published his memoir, To Be Frank, Building the American Dream in Business and Life. Stick around. Today's guest has a giant heart that revs around 600 horsepower. Frank Morsani is one of the finest men, bar none, with whom I've ever had the pleasure to spend time. That's noteworthy because I got to know the Tampa Bay auto dealer at one of the lowest points in his business career, yet he always held his head high. Somewhere around 1988, 1989, I started working on my first nonfiction book, Stadium for Rent, the story of Tampa Bay's decades-long and enormously frustrating quest for a Major League Baseball team. Many local business leaders had risen up and been cut to pieces by the ongoing quixotic mission, none more memorably than Frank Morsani. He committed and lost millions of dollars trying to convince a string of existing baseball teams to relocate to Tampa, and later to St. Petersburg, to no avail. When MLB announced in 1993 that it would add two expansion franchises, he seemed a shoo-in. He wasn't. But you know what made it all the worse? Frank Morsani wasn't then, and certainly isn't now, a baseball fan. He was just a kid from Oklahoma who had found a home in Tampa, Florida, a community that welcomed him, loved him, frankly, and if baseball was what his adopted neighbors wanted, he wanted to help them get it. For a lot of people, the Morsani story began and ended with the car dealerships and baseball. But this kind and gentle soul, and his wife of more than half a century, Carol, have meant so much more to their community, thanks to their philanthropic efforts that have included giving millions to the University of South Florida, University of Tampa, Tampa's Straz Center for the Performing Arts, and the Dali Museum. Most recently, the Morsanis gave $20 million to USF for construction of the Morsani College of Medicine, soon to rise in downtown Tampa. Morsani, with the help of my friend Dave Scheiber, just published his memoir, To Be Frank, Building the American Dream in Business and Life. It is my great pleasure to help introduce a kind man and his message to a new audience. With that, Frank Morsani, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you. Your very kind remarks. That was very kind of you, and it's a pleasure being with you again, Bob.
It's great to see you. I don't know how, but somehow 2 decades have passed since we last spoke and we're in a room together. So I guess you're doing okay, huh?
The world's been good, yes, sir.
And I'm glad to know that you got that whole baseball thing behind you. And I'm sorry I even had to bring it up.
Well, you know, I can finally talk about it after 25 years, but
Oh my goodness! Now it seems to me that one of the great lessons of your life is perseverance. Because if anyone ever had a right to throw in the towel and give up on life, it probably would have been you after that deal with Major League Baseball kind of ate you up and spit you out in the 80s. Am I wrong about that?
no, that was a pretty difficult period in our lives.
Can you take folks back a little bit in time and explain how an immensely successful car dealer got so involved with a sport he didn't even find appealing?
Well, as I said, spring training had been here in the Bay Area since 1910, and many of the residents and leadership decided that it was time that we had a major league team in this region. So a number of people came to me and asked me if I would lead the effort to see if we could acquire a team in some manner, either a relocation or expansion. So that's how I got involved.
Frank, where does your civic interest come from? I mean, why has it always been important to you to not just support but to build up the community around you?
Well, this community has taken a long time to develop. As I used to say, the idea of philanthropy really was not very pronounced in this community. And we had lived in communities like Philadelphia and others, where in Oklahoma, where philanthropy was a major component of the communities. So we'd always been involved in things, but we decided to, well, let's see if we can maybe make some investments that would generate others to realize the importance of our civic responsibilities. And we made that decision, and it was on that basis that we moved forward.
How did you ever decide how much to give when you were giving, or when you were? Is it like tithing in a way? Do you give a certain percentage? Is it based on the project that you're working on? How do you decide something like that?
Well, that's a good question, and it's hard to decide. I guess most of the time when some people would come to us and say, we need this to do that. This is what it's going to take to, as an example, the Performing Arts Center. And we say, okay, we'd talk it over and say, well, we can do this. And that's, most of the time, that's what's happened. Other times we were in meetings and things would come up. It's like the medical school. We were in conversations with the president and the dean, and they were saying what all they wanted to do with the medical school, and I said, well, if you had $20 or $25 million, what could you do with it? And about an hour later, they said, we think we could work with that.
It took them an hour, huh?
So we said, well, okay. Then I said, well, let me talk it over with Carol and see what we can do. So it was kind of that, because people laid out their objectives, and we tried to help. It's like with the Dali, with Tom James, and I was on that board and wanted to build a new building. Well, what's it going to take to get it started? So that's how we kind of did the things.
Does your family ever say, did Carol or anyone else in the family ever say, Frank, maybe you'd like to leave some of that behind? Maybe.
Well, there's those discussions have taken place, but we said, well, they can all live on Main Street. They don't need to. They have been amply taken care of.
They don't need to live up on the hill. They can live on Main Street?
That's right.
I see. All right. So, I got to go back and ask you a little bit about baseball, because that's, of course, the genesis of our familiarity with each other. What did that experience with baseball, what did it actually do to your finances, and how did you ever dig out of that hole? I mean, it seemed like there was a time when you were never going to see, above the curb again. It was just bad.
Yes, it was. It was a very, very difficult period in Carol's and my life. But we said, well, get up in the morning and wash your face and comb your hair, and let's get to another day, because we've never done anything to any man that would to hurt them in any manner, and we have a clean sheet, and we're going to move forward from this day. And that's how we've addressed our life and how we addressed that crisis.
If I had told you in 1990 that you would one day be able to, forget about everything else, you would one day be able to donate $20 million to build a college of medicine in downtown Tampa, would you have told me I was out of my mind?
Probably.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example. And how? I guess you sort of answered this, but for example, when you go back to the Performing Arts Center, and for people who don't know, in Tampa, the Straz Center has, I think its largest hall is the Carol Morsani Performing Hall. It's a beautiful.
That's correct.
Beautiful hall. How did that involvement come about? That's a little different than medical school or baseball or the Dali. Closer to the Dali, I guess.
Well, I had been on that board for some time, and I looked at nonprofit organizations in the state of Florida have to have heavy philanthropic support. Because as a growing state, we have so many demands on resources that if you're going to have the arts, both the visual arts and the performing arts, you have to have philanthropy. And we realized that the Performing Arts Center needed to have an endowment of substance because state and local government resources were going to be limited. So we talked it over with Judy Lisi and with Bob Humphreys, who was the attorney at that time for the Performing Arts Center, and we said, well, what would be the number we'd put on these various halls for people to donate? And so we made the decision to dedicate resources for that particular venue.
So you were comfortable, obviously, leading in that?
Yes, yes, that's correct.
And and again, here I am bringing up baseball, but did the baseball experience change your mindset and Carol's mindset with regard to how you participated in and supported the Tampa Bay community going forward from that point?
Well, I washed my hands of baseball,
but I mean,
never look back.
Well, what I mean is, did you decide? Obviously, you weren't going to invest in baseball anymore, but did it change the way you thought about what to support in the community?
Not really. It didn't have any effect on. We were going to do it with just disregard that portion of our life.
And with regard to the medical center, because you've certainly had a lot of interest in economic development. That's why you pursued the baseball, I think. The benefit of the medical center is that it's not just another building on the USF campus. You're actually you're helping to recreate the downtown Tampa now, right? Was that a bonus to you?
The downtown campus or Tampa General Hospital is a great teaching venue for the medical students, and this is going to give them a closer and with the doctors that are working there, both at the university and at TGH. And the students, it's going to give them easier access. And as a result, also with what Mr. Vinnick is doing, it's just going to add so much to our region and to downtown Tampa.
And how about the irony that after all these years, as you're helping with downtown Tampa with the College of Medicine, all the talk is that the baseball team, the damn baseball team, may wind up right there in downtown Tampa. Everything coming circular 20 years later.
Goes around, comes around. It's
So you don't have a problem with baseball finally coming to Tampa?
I don't think it'll be in downtown Tampa.
Really?
But
all right, I'll ask.
I don't think it can be in the cards. I mean, our traffic situations just don't lend itself to be in a downtown area. But I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I've had no input. No one's asked me, and I wouldn't know how to answer if they did ask me. So
fair enough.
That's just my opinion.
I had to ask. Okay, I will not ask you any more about baseball. Nothing more baseball related. So let's try something completely different. As a former chairman of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, what do you think of the perception of the organization that the organization has become too politicized in recent years?
Unfortunately, I think they've taken some positions that I would have a lot of problems with. They've been very aggressive, which I believe in being aggressive, but I must say I think that they have gotten away from some of our basics that were important to me at that time. Well, our whole nation, these extremists on both sides are really, I don't think they're in our best interest.
Do you think that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has outlived its usefulness at this point?
Oh, no. it had not led to its usefulness. I think it just needs to take a different course.
Okay.
I think the chamber is a very important, integral part of the business community, but I do think that that we could improve its image.
Now, unless you've jumped, I believe you are still a rock-ribbed Republican. Is that still the truth? Is that still the case?
Well, I've always believed in decentralization. I think we have too much centralization in government, even though I probably, as I call myself, I'm a social liberal and a physical conservative. Because I think you can be both, and I think you can find ways to accomplish both ends of that spectrum.
And so, how do you feel about the current direction of the national GOP with either Donald Trump or even Ted Cruz as the standard bearer?
I think it's it's pathetic, is how it is.
All right, now don't hold back. Tell me what you think.
Well, I'm not very good at mincing words. I think it's a tragedy on our system.
Does the party still speak to your values?
It doesn't seem that they are.
Okay, I just had to ask. I was curious.
Oh, no. I love to talk about politics. That's fine.
Okay. Tell me, and let's talk a little bit about the process of writing a memoir. You reveal a lot of personal details from, your first date and things like that about your family, about the military service, about what how you got hold of better food while serving aboard ship. Some real secrets got out there. What compelled you? I mean, I still think of you, even though our time together was spent doing a lot of interviewing, hours and hours of interviewing, and I got you to talk a lot about yourself. But what compelled you? I still see you as a very private man to tell so much about yourself at this juncture.
Well, that was difficult. However, I really hope that we'd inspire young people, because I think there's a large number of people are sending the wrong messages to our young people today, that they can't succeed, that there's too many blocks in the way, and so I hope to inspire people that you have to be tenacious, and if you don't talk about your adversities, people don't understand what it requires to be. I hate to use the word successful, but for lack of another word, that's what I will use, to create your life. Because I'm convinced you can create. If anyone had given you a blank sheet of paper when you were a young man, that what you were going to be doing in the year 2016, and you or I could not have ever predicted such a thing. But we could have said we're going to live a good life, and we're going to make things happen as we go along the way.
So still the land of opportunity?
Absolutely. I always wonder if we could take a blank sheet of paper, and as an example, take in my youth, what were the kinds of companies that were out there in my youth? And then on the other side of the paper, what names are the companies that are there today? I think there's more companies, more kinds of businesses today than there were when I was a young man. So it's just different. I don't know anything about these new companies, of course, like Amazon and so on and so forth, but and the tech companies. But my goodness, I think there's tremendous opportunity, but you have to be willing to put your shoulder to the wheel.
How did your upbringing in Oklahoma on the farm? How did that affect the way you turned out today? Do you think you have a lot of time to think back on it? What was the benefit? And maybe drawbacks too?
The foundation of integrity and hard work and being having to make things happen because when you just like on the farm, some people say, well, how did you get involved in mechanical things? Well, when you're on a farm and you can't call up someone and have them come and fix your machinery, you got to fix it yourself. Mm-hmm. So all of those kind of things added to the equation.
How do you, as you think back to your parents and your family, the way you were brought up, would you recommend? Would you like to see more parents raise their kids the way you were raised? Did you raise your family, differently than you were raised?
Well, it was such a different period, of course. I do think that we had a very loving family, and yet we didn't have any financial resources, but we never thought about it, and we never considered it. It was this was the cards we were dealt. And so you didn't think about what cards somebody else was dealt. Like raising our two daughters, even though now we had gained some measure of affluency, we didn't let that influence them. We made sure the value of work and making your word good. Those are important considerations in life, and so we tried to bring those to them as they grew up. So I hope that young parents are doing that today.
All right, just a couple more questions and we'll let you go. Tell me about your relationship with Carol. You've been married what's the equivalent of forever for most of us, and her name is on the Performing Arts Center. Tell me how you two balance things out in a marriage this long and this successfully.
The biggest thing we can all do is listen to our wives. They generally have better judgment than we do. We don't always do. In fact, she will tell me the only mistakes you've made is when you didn't take when as like baseball. She said, I told you not to get involved in that, and you went and did it.
Oh man, she's going to make you pay for that for years.
Oh yes, I never have forgotten it. No, that's not quite true. But to address your question, we've now been married 65 years. 65. And we every morning we're early risers. So we have a couple of cups of coffee every morning and talk about things, whatever's going on, or might talk about the political stuff or anything. The big thing is that I've always talked to each other. And I've been supportive of, just like her involvement in women leadership and philanthropy at USF, how big of a program that's becomes, and she started that, and our discussions about how to get it started, what we're thinking about there. So we talk to each other. And it seems like to me that I worry about a lot of people don't talk to each other, so we respect each other and talk to each other on a daily basis. And we don't make calls during the day. My wife never called me at work in 50 some odd years. She wouldn't think of calling the office because she knows when I leave out of the driveway in the morning, I got business on my mind, nothing else except, and so I'm bad, but that's how it is. That's how we've always done it. When we get home in the evening, we talk, but during the day, over all these years of work, she never called me at my office, not one time.
Wow. And most importantly, who had the final edit on the book? Frank Morsani or Carol Morsani?
Both of us. I would think she was very involved in writing the book. Dave and I we wanted her in because, of course, she had all the memories too. So.
All right, last question. When a person writes a memoir, they obviously have to think about their lives. You go back over a lot of things that have happened. what would you like to be remembered for? What would you like your legacy to be, both as a person, as a businessman, whatever is important to you?
Well, I think kindness. We've always thought that was an easy thing to do, and we'd like to be remembered for our kindness to other people, all people of all stripes.
Very nice. Well, folks, listen. Sorry, did I interrupt you? I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the development of people, I've seen the success of the people that worked with me and for me for the years. That's been great satisfaction to me.
Well, folks, listen, you can find Frank Morsani's memoir, To Be Frank, Building the American Dream in Business and Life, in great bookstores everywhere, or you can order it right now at a great price at MrMedia.com. It's MRmedia.com. If you're watching on MrMedia.com, just below the video on the left or on the right, you'll see the cover of the book. You know how to do it. You click on the book. It'll take you to Amazon. You can order it as an ebook, or you can order the physical copy and have it within a day or so. Order 5 or 10 copies. This is a wonderful man. He's led a fascinating life. I can't recommend it enough. And Frank, I have a feeling you're going to say no, but do you have a website, or are you a Twitter man or a Facebook guy?
None of the above. I still use my pen, the ink and pen.
Do you have a flip phone or do you have a smartphone? I got to ask.
I have a smartphone.
All right. So
I don't know how to use it very well. But I do have. I get a lesson each day.
I bet you have a pretty technologically advanced car, though, don't you?
Oh, well, yes. I'll do that.
All right, fair enough. Well, listen, it was a pleasure to see and speak with you. I feel terrible that so much time has passed, but you, unlike me, have not changed in 20 years. Got it. Must be the genes. I credit your parents. It was great to see you, and congratulations on the book. And thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you very much, Bob. It was a pleasure getting to see and visit with you again. So don't let it be so long the next time.
Turn your back on the deceiver. It's a bad idea to believe her. A bad idea to believe her. Turn up the stereo receiver. Turn up the stereo receiver.
Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience full of automobile dealers who still pine for the return of Joe Isuzu in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida.